20 Indian soldiers, including a colonel, have been killed in a violent face-off that took place on Monday night. A face-off with Chinese troops at Galwan Valley in Ladakh, in the most serious escalation at the border in 5 decades, at a time where soldiers of both sides were in the process of disengagement. More than 43 Chinese soldiers have been killed or seriously injured, has reported the news agency ANI, quoting sources. India has said the clash has happened as a result of an attempt by the Chinese side to unilaterally change the status quo there, rebutting China's claims that Indian soldiers crossed over the border. This is the first fatal clash since 1975 between India and China, who fought the border war, of course, in 1962. Prime Minister Modi held meetings with the Home Minister Amit Shah, with the Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, who had before that or earlier met with the military chiefs twice as India discussed a response to this huge development. Let's go across to Vishnu Som for more. So Vishnu, that confirmation coming in from the army about the death of 20 Indian soldiers, what other information do we know from that army statement?
Well, Indian and Chinese troops have disengaged at the Galwan area, where they had earlier clashed on the night of the 15th and 16th of June 2020, is what the army says. 17 Indian troops who were critically injured in the line of duty at the standoff location. I was just trying to read that statement. 17 Indian troops who were critically injured in the line of duty at the standoff location and exposed to sub-zero temperatures in the high-altitude terrain have succumbed to their injuries, taking the total that were killed in action to 20. The Indian Army is firmly committed to protecting the territorial integrity and sovereignty of the nation. So that's what the Army has been saying.
All right, Vishnu, thanks. Let's also go across to Smita Prakash, who joins us, the editor of ANI. Smita Prakash, we have the army confirming that 20 Indian soldiers, including a colonel, have been killed. But the numbers of the casualties on the Chinese soldiers' side is coming from ANI, according to sources. What can you tell us about this?
Well, our sources confirm that intercepts that our side had, Indian side had, showed that their toll casualties, including dead, are 43. Choppers can be seen where the Chinese have come in, their Chinese choppers have come in, and they're picking up their bodies and taking them back. Now, probably that's the delay. The reason probably why that the Indian side did not comment on the number of casualties on the Chinese side. Usually what happens is that the Indian army never talks about how many were killed on whether on the western sector or on the eastern sector. The numbers are never put out by the Indian army on the other side. Whereas this time what has happened is that what we've seen is that no rules of engagement have been kept by the PLA. They have not done anything which are as per the rules of engagement. They've been like a thuggish street villain. So as a result of that, I think the Indian army waited, whereby the Chinese would put out their numbers just like we put out our numbers. But nothing came from the Chinese side other than propaganda. So as a result of that, I think now what has happened is that through sources, this has been revealed to us.
And the discrepancy between 3 that we were first hearing from the army in a statement saying that 3 soldiers had lost their lives, and then later at night jumping from 3 to 20. Is there an explanation for that?
Sarah, you could... Yeah, Sarah, you can see this as a discrepancy, or you can see this as a warlike situation or a clash which is happening on the border, and the numbers which are given out are as per what happens on the ground. So when something like this happens, the person has to be lifted, brought by chopper to the base hospital. In the base hospital, there are certain protocols which have to be followed by the military, and once those are done, only then do the numbers come out. So from 3 to 20, and those could rise too, because some are very grievously wounded. So this could happen, and just remember that what has happened is that the bodies have been badly injured, they're mutilated. So it's not something which is an easy thing to see your comrades fall in action like that. So I think it takes time for the army to give out the numbers, and one has to wait for it.
And lastly, many of course would be wondering, and this would be an obvious question to raise, that the army has said that there were no gunshots fired. This was a skirmish, a physical combat, and yet we're seeing these kinds of numbers. 20 Indian soldiers who have lost their lives on one side, 43 on the Chinese side.
Correct. This is what happens on the boundary, on the LAC. No shots are fired. This is seems very odd, considering that so much man and machine has been moved by both countries on the LAC. But then traditionally there has been no firing of bullets. So whatever you see is this gutham gutha ladai, which is fisticuffs used and pushing, shoving. That's what it is. That's what it has been all these years. But now what you're seeing is that what the Indian Army sources say is that there were bamboos with nails on it which were hit. So these are the kind of things which happened. Also, the details will come out later about the height at which this fight happened. So some sources are saying, which are unconfirmed as yet, that because they were at such a height, many of the soldiers who died, who were killed in action, whether from the Indian side or the Chinese side, are people who